Okay, folks, we are back to look at a few common functions that I think will be really useful for you as you move forward using Google Sheets. And these are a couple of things. And the reason I bring these first couple up is because in Excel, this was kind of a tricky thing to do, and it took some finagling to really make it work well. But Sheets has done some work to make this a really easy thing to do. Um, we're going to start out by taking these names that are divided. Sometimes you run into spreadsheets that have the names split first and last instead of one name together, like this. And so, what we're going to do is take and in another cell over here, we will go ahead and use the join command equals join. And one of the things you want to potentially do when you're using these commands is I can't often remember exactly the order that these things happen. So if you click this little question mark, it'll give you the formula help, or you can hit F1, and that way you can see what it's looking for right now. The first thing it's looking for is the delimiter. And so that's what it's going to have between those pieces of information. So I'm going to put in quotation marks, a space. I just want a space between the names. Once I hit a comma, then it says what's the first value, and that's this Alex, comma, and then the second value is Trebek. So I'll close that, hit enter, and there is my combined Alex Trebek. Sometimes, like for example, one of the things I used to use things like this for was mail merge, where I would need to have a specific order or broken up address, zip code, name, all that stuff. So this is something that can be really handy. And I'm going to do the same thing I usually do with these, and I'm going to use the fill handle to drag that down, and since the only thing that it's accessing are these things that are next to it, and it is changing each time to make sure that it goes to the correct row, you're in good shape. So that is the deal. We do join the what we want between, and then the two pieces we're putting together. Now down here, we're going to take a name that's already together and we're going to split it up. We're going to use the split function to do that. So split and then open those parentheses and it says, what is the text? And we're going to go ahead and click on this for the text. And then it asks for the delimiter. And now in this case, that's going to be what's between the two pieces where we want to split it. And we're going to do quotes, space, quote, and then close those parentheses. And the cool thing is it doesn't just use this one, it splits it over to here. So that's how we do it. And if we take and again use our fill handle to drop it down, then it'll do the same thing for us. And so those are two really handy commands for names, especially. That's where I find myself using them the most. Now, over here, we are going to use some commands to manipulate these numbers and words over here. So the first thing that we're going to do is count the number of numbers we have right here. That might not seem very useful, but in many cases, when there could be no value at all in a cell, maybe as a response to a Google form or something like that, um, you want to be able to see how many responses you had that were not blank. And that's what this first command will do. It's equals count A. And what it does is it counts all the spots that are not blank. So I'm going to go in here, select the range, and it's going to count those non-blanks in there, and that gives me 11. So I could count those up, and I'm going to trust that there are 11 numbers rolling in there. So again, count A just counts the number of values, non-blank cells in a range. Numbers greater than 20. So we're going to do a different one here. It's equals count if. So it's only going to count it if in this range, and again, we're looking at our formula help, which is always, I have that on most of the time. In this range, comma, I'm looking for, in quotation marks, greater than 20. If you're using greater than or less than or something like that, a qualification like a condition like that, then you have to have it in quotes. But you'll see on the next one that if we're doing just a certain value in a cell, then we only have to use the number. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. And the number of numbers greater than 20 is 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Those are the ones that are greater than 20. Now in this one, I'm going to do count if. How many instances of 50 do we have here? So in the range of these, comma, 50. And since 50 is a number, we don't have to put it in quotation marks. The only reason we do quotes is because we had to have that greater than symbol. Close that, enter, and it's got 3 that have 50 as the value. 1, 2, 3. Now this next one is a demonstration because I'm going to do count if, but I want to count how many times a certain word occurs in these words over here. So I'm going to choose the range, which is this. And you can imagine, especially for Google form responses, how important this would be to be able to count how many times a certain word showed up. Um, in quotation marks, because it's a word, I'm going to choose words. And that shows up 3 times over here. So we'll see if this works properly. And it does. So again, count if, here's the range, and here is my criteria. It's what I'm looking for. These are some really common things to use in Google Sheets. And I hope that you'll find those helpful and at some point you'll find a use for them in something you might be working on.